Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk you through the essential eye brushes that I use as a professional makeup artist. There are an abundance of makeup brushes available, but you don't need all of them. So as I create the eye look, I will talk you through the brushes and their uses. Let's start with blending brushes. Now there are varying types of blending brushes. You get flat top brushes, rounded top or tapered brushes, domed brushes, and also slightly more tapered brushes that are thinner when you turn them to the side. They each cover a different amount of surface area because they vary in size. They also come in different materials, mainly natural fibres and synthetic fibres. Natural bristles tend to be a little bit softer. They also have a cuticle. This means they pick up and lay down product a lot better than synthetic bristles. But this makes removing foundation and concealer harder, whereas liquid and cream based products work brilliantly with synthetic bristles as they clean up really easy. And this is the same for all brushes, not just blending brushes. I usually like to apply a transition shade with a blending brush. This one is slightly tapered because you can put it right into the socket, but it blends at the same time. This round top blending brush has a larger surface area, so it allows me to blend over the entire eyelid in less strokes and you get a very seamless finish. And I can use either synthetic or natural because I'm working with powders. So this domed blending brush is slightly smaller. It's great if you've got smaller lids or you want to be more precise in the socket line itself. This is great if you've already laid down your transition and you want to build up that transition shade to be a little bit more intense but closer to the socket line itself. So next up we're going to move on to pointed crease brushes. Again, these come in both natural hair and synthetic. They also vary in thickness. As you can see, the bristles are quite long and they really taper to a point. The point itself is quite dense, which allows you to place that directly into the socket line like I'm doing here. And using window wiper motions really does the blending for you. It creates a nice cut crease. It's also pointy so you can create precision work. If you want to create a nice outer V shape and blend at the same time, this style brush is really the one for those techniques. It will place the majority of that colour in the socket for you and blend the outer edges seamlessly. Next up is a duo fibre brush. This is one of my favourite in both the eye brushes and face brushes. Here we have a mix of both natural and synthetic fibres, and you can see the lengths are slightly different. This means that the brush picks up less product, so it allows you to create washes of colour without applying too much too quickly. It also makes blending both powders and liquids an absolute dream, whether you're using eyeshadows or foundations. These are also slightly tapered, which means they do fit into the socket and blend the outer seams really well. These do come in varying sizes, so if you've got smaller lids and you want more precision, you can buy a smaller style brush. What I love about duo fibre brushes is that they do clean up really well. The white tips always stay beautifully white. Next up we have a small socket blender, very similar to a standard blending brush, only it's about half the size, and this is one brush I cannot live without in my kit. The bristles, much like a blending brush, are quite splayed out, but because they're only half the size, you can be so much more precise with where you apply the colour and how you blend it. I tend to use this when I want to darken up the socket line or around the outer C shape. Using a standard blending brush like this is just too large, but using a shader brush would apply too much colour, so this little brush is perfect. Next we're moving on to flat shader brushes. These are short, dense bristles. They're quite thin brushes when you turn them to the side. What's great about these brushes is that when you pick up pigment, as you can see, it really holds it at the very forefront of the brush. You don't lose any of that pigment between the bristles. For example, if you look at the flat shader versus picking it up with a blending brush, you can see that it picks up less pigment and it's going to be a very messy application. Flat shader brushes give you a really even, full coverage finish, ideal for applying that lid colour. And because these ones are quite thin and packed together, they've got a sharp defined edge across the top. You can create more precision when applying that lid colour if you wanted to create a cut crease. I do prefer the natural haired versions of this particular brush, but if you're going to use a cream based product then you would need a synthetic version for that, otherwise it would just clump in the bristles. So as you can see, I'm going back in with my E10 brush to just build up some extra colour on the outer edge. Next up we have pencil brushes. Mostly these tend to come in natural hair fibres, but you can get synthetic versions. So these are quite short bristles and they're slightly tapered to a point at the top so you can be quite precise. These are really great for smoking out your lower lash line or your top lash line. And again, they come in varying sizes. Next up we have mini detail shaders. So much like the flat shader, this is the tiny version, and you can see in comparison to a standard flat shader, they're a lot smaller. Similar to a pencil brush, you can smudge along the lower lash line. The only difference is that these are quite thin, whereas the pencil brushes are rounded. The pencil brushes are better for smoking out and blending, whereas these flat shaders you can apply colour as well as create more defined shadow lines along your lash line because the brushes are thin and compacted together. These ones are great for applying highlighter on the inner corner and your brow bone. Angled liner brushes are a multi-purpose tool. They have ultra thin tips, so they're great for lining your lash line, they're great for filling in your eyebrows, and you can also go around your lip line to create a really nice contour or clean up any mistakes with your lip liner. You can create a really sharp, precise wing, and as this one is synthetic, you can use it with any cream or powder-based products. Eyeliner brushes again come in varying shapes. You've got angled necks, you've got longer tips, and you've got both synthetic and natural hair. My preference is to use a paintbrush, and I use one with a natural hair fibre. It doesn't matter too much about clumping because it's such a small brush that it isn't going to create too much of a problem. I find with the synthetic bristles they tend to bounce back too much. The natural fibres tend to flow better with the natural shape and curvature of your eye. Depending on if you want a very thin liner or a thick liner would depend on the thickness of your tip. So you just need to choose accordingly to your preference. Shorter, stubbier tips are going to create a thicker line, but they're not going to be as flexible with the wing. Having an angled ferrule, the ferrule is the silver section, allows for maximum control. It arches towards the eye, which keeps your fingers out of the way, which means it's easier to see, especially when you're doing your opposite eye and your arm comes across your face. I find with synthetic tips, they tend to stay in shape better for longer than natural hair, and the super pointy ones are brilliant at creating a really crisp wing. So it's all down to personal preference. Just because a brush is intended for one purpose doesn't mean it can't be used for another. So these are my top essential brushes for the eyes. I use them every day in my kit. I hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comment section below and I will get back to you. I've also listed and linked all the brushes used in the description bar for you. If you found this tutorial useful and you would like to see a face brush 101, please let me know in the comments section and I will get that filmed for you. As usual, you can follow me outside of YouTube. My social handles will be on screen for you, and if you missed last week's tutorial, they will also be on screen. Thank you for watching and I'll see you again soon. Bye!